All right, good morning. I just had the scope out and I was scoping around on some of the X circuit signals and I didn't see anything goofy. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take the chassis out and I'm just going to start scrutinizing, and I'm going to replace the socket for the LF 13331. I am going to uh, socket that. And I'm just going to scrutinize the components in the X deflection circuit. Once again, it's this lower half of this lower circuit. So I'll go through and just kind of scrutinize the components in that section again. Because we've got good Y deflection, we just don't have any X. So, all right. That will be the course of action. Just take this thing apart and look at some parts. Okay, I have been testing transistors. Basically, these little guys, the 5210s and the 3906, I remove those, test them, and then replace them because they're just cheap. These ones I just tested. I did not replace those. But these little guys, the TO92s, I replaced those. I have lots of them. But I think I found the problem. I went ahead and was going to just remove the DAC. So as I was desoldering it, 3 of the legs came right off. 3 legs came off of this DAC. There's 2 of them. And there's another one down there, see it? I think that's the problem. So some of them are still stuck in one's still in the board. So I think I can save that if the DAC's good. I'll solder legs onto it just to try to save the DAC. But I removed the op amp and I was going to test it out of circuit. I'm going to replace this socket. But I think everything's fine. I think the problem was that DAC. Now that I see that. So, and all of the transistors tested good. There's nothing bad in this section. Had to have been the DAC. So we will take care of that. Alright, I have just put a replacement DAC in for the moment. I will try to save the original. But I've got it turned on and I don't know what's going on. It looks like there's now a Y axis problem. Huh. Strange. Yeah. No idea. But it looks like it. I mean, it could be. I might try the other DAC. The other DAC might not be good. So yeah, I don't know. Guess we'll take it back apart and try socket in the other DAC. Yeah, who knows? We'll see what we can do. It looks like I see lines. I see where it's drawing lines down there. It's obviously not good. So, yeah, we'll look into it and see if we can find out what's going on here. All right, we're hooked back up. This time I'm just using the deflection transistors on the monitor chassis because they are good. Well, I replaced the DAC with a known good DAC, and I replaced the TL081, and no dice, it's still goofy. so close because you can see lines. It's just not drawing it right. It's just not drawing right. And it's hard to tell what is actually going on. Yeah, I don't know. Spot killer. Huh. Very interesting. My cable, I know my cable's good. I know data's getting here good. That's not an issue. And nothing happens when I mess with the cable or, you know. That's not an issue. I will. I'm going to probe around a little bit carefully and check some voltages. I'm going to make sure my plus and minus 25 are both present. And the 15, I'm going to check for 15 volts for the op amps and stuff like that. Just simple stuff first. So if I find anything cool, I will. I'll be back. Okay. Curiously enough, I checked the voltage on the op amps. Right here. Pin 4 is supposed to be negative 15. Pin 7 is supposed to be plus 15. I have plus 15 on 7, but I only have minus 6 volts on pin 4. So that is on both op amps. So that is going to cause an issue. So I'm going to have to address that. Minus 15. Yeah, it's got to be the regulator, right? I think that's all that it does is supplies the positive and negative 15 for the op amps. I think that's the only thing on those two, I believe. I'm going to look at the schematic a little bit more, but yeah, I think that, and that's going to wreck the signals coming out of the amps for sure, because they don't have the proper rails to work with. So, well, cool. I'm glad I found something. So, all right, I'll be back. Let me fix that problem. And yeah, because everything else you see plus 25 coming down, and negative 25 is around, and the 15 volts are only for the amps. So I put a new regulator in there too. I don't know what is going on with that. So who knows? There are diodes. I should look. I don't see that. I will look at the negative 15 volt circuit. So I'll find it and look at it. Something ain't right. I need to fix that though. I have to have the proper voltages on those amps, so that because the way they use the positive and negative rail to swing the signal to the rail, and if it's basically clipping on the negative side, and you can that kind of makes sense a little bit because it's clipping on the negative side. The negative side is left. We're getting full up and right, but no left and down. Yeah. All right. Anyway, let's fix that. Let's make sure that we have our voltages on the amps right. All right. I'll be back. Okay, I've got this thing hooked up out here. I just got a yoke hooked up. I got it all hooked up, and I got the thing in glass to keep me away from it. But pin 4 is negative 15 and minus 15 and falling, right? it's doing that. This is 15 negative. Oops. And all right, I think something just, I think I just popped a fuse, which is, you know, without a signal to it, yeah, that'll happen. Yeah, but the negative 15 just seems to be going down and down and down. I don't know what that's all about. So something's dragging it down. I gotta figure that out. Be right back. Alright, yes, when you're testing like this, you should not have the yoke plugged in. It'll kill your fuses, pop the breakers. But if you pull the yoke out, you can sit here all day like this and it won't blow fuses or nothing. So you can test your voltages and whatnot. But do be careful about that. Don't get nowhere near that. I've got it in glass, and glass is a great insulator, so yeah. But with this, I pulled everything out. I pulled out the DACs. This is everything that uses negative 15 volts. The 2 DACs, the 2 amps, and the LF13, you know, the switch. Those 5 parts right there. The socketed parts. And now if I go to pin 4, which is negative 15, it is holding steady at negative 15 volts. Almost exactly. And it's not moving. So what I want to do is I'm going to put the DACs in. I'm going to turn it off. I'm going to insert the DACs, check the voltage, make sure, see if it's dropping. Something's making it drop. And when I find out what it is, you can do one part at a time. Now it's fired up. And you just got to kind of monitor it now. Look at negative 15. And it looks good. I'm going to give it a minute. Make sure it ain't dropping. It's something that's attached to that. It's not necessarily these parts. Something in a circuit related to one of these parts. Maybe a diode is failing or something when it's loaded with the part in circuit. You know, there's a lot of diodes and stuff in this circuit stuff. So, yeah. Here it is again. Negative 15 is, it's looking good. No problem. So I'm going to go ahead and turn it off. And I'll put the other DAC in. Pin 1. Now we'll turn it on. And check negative 15 volts. Yeah, it seems to be right where it should be. And I'm going to continue on doing this, and when I find something, whatever, when I find whatever's making it drain down like that, I'll come back. Alright guys, I've had a major breakthrough and an epiphany. I've had an epiphany. I was going about this all wrong, and no wonder I could never get these monitors to work. Number one, I've made 2 big mistakes. And maybe you guys caught on to one of them earlier in the video. And I'm lucky, I'm hoping that I didn't damage anything. I had this hooked up wrong. I had this hooked up straight. Basically, I had it backwards. I had pin 1 connected to pin 34. And I realized that, and I actually did this. Oh, excuse me. I actually made this legend, you know, pin 1 is on the PCB, pin 1 on that connector is on M2, which is a 377, pin 9 of the chip, and then I beeped that out to pin 1 is actually Y1, pin 11 on the Y DAC. And I went through and I beeped out every one of the signals. I had it completely backwards. Which, yeah, unfortunately. But I got that situated. This, I have beeped out everything on this. Now this board goes to this board perfect. The second thing the second problem was this would have never worked. This setup would have never worked. And this is why I tried doing CinemaTronics monitor repair before, and I failed, went down in flames, failed miserably, and this is why. And this will make this to where I can actually do this now. I had the ground loop, the common reference was separated from the board to the monitor. There was no common ground. I was running this off of a switcher, and I was running this off of an AR supply, but there was no common ground. Now, what I did was I eliminated the switcher, and I hooked this here, the power to this, also to the AR. So now I'm pulling the AR 5 volts to power this, and the AR is powering this. So now I have common reference. And it seems to be working fine. And I'll show you that. I mean, the waveforms, according to what it says these should look like in the FAQ, I'm really pretty excited. I'm going to set this to 1 millivolt. 1 millisecond, I should say. And I don't know, we'll just do 2 and 2. I don't know what that's going to... Okay. And I'm going to go ahead and fire this up. Remember, I've got this glass jarred. Okay, it is now on. And I'm going to probe the DAC. Pin 15 is the output of the DAC. Okay. And I want to move the offset a little bit up. Okay. Yeah, right there. And I want to do this to, oops, yeah. Let's go right about there. Let's see what auto scale gives me. Yeah, I don't like that. Okay. If I turn this off, and I'm going to give you a look up at my scope. Okay. And I'm going to probe pin 15 of the XDAC. 13, 14, 15. I can't see. It's right here. You can see it moving into the screen here. That is what that should look like. That's the signal of the XDAC. And if I come over to pin 15 of the YDAC, okay. And let me try to auto scale in. And there's the YDAC. Go back to 1 millisecond, and that is the YDAC, and you can see it's got positive and negative, and we auto measure right off the DAC. It's 5 volts peak to peak, and that's exactly what it says that it should be. Now I'm going to go to my op amps. Pin 3 is the input right off the, and that is absolutely what that is supposed to look like according to the and it's bound about 3 volts ish, and it should be, and here's the output of the op amp, and it just, oops, that's the output of the op amp, and I mean, that's perfect. And here's the input of the other op amp. It's exactly what it's supposed to look like. And pin 6 is the output. Perfect. Now if we come to, the FAQ also says that the 2N5322 is supposed to have like a 30 volt peak to peak signal on it. So I'm going to probe that and then do a auto scale. And here, look at that. I mean, peak to peak, it's got 45 volts, but I would say that's good to go. I mean, the signal looks good. So this thing should be good. Now if I come over to this one, this is the other one, which is a positive spike. It's, you know, it's a push-pull configuration. So they both seem to be working. So I'm pretty excited. It took me a while to get this right and to realize that I didn't have common ground, and I'll tell you how I figured that out. I was probing this thing. Let me turn the light back on. I was probing this. I'm going to turn it off. Turn this off. Yeah, I was probing here, and I had my scope grounded to the PCB, and I was probing the 7406 over here, and my ground was like floating, and I was like, what's going on there? And then it dawned on me. I was like, oh, well, I must not have ground common. And it's something I should have known right from the get-go, but it took me a while to figure that one out. I just didn't have a common looped ground. And the thing is I do this a lot with a lot of my boards that I repair. I'll run the 5 volts off of a switcher, and then I'll run the negative 15 or whatever, you know, on a Tempest, say. I'll run the negative 22 and the positive 22 off of the switcher, but I'll run the 5 volts off, or I'll run the 5 volts off of a switcher, and then I'll use the AR for the oddball other voltages plus the sound amp and all that. The difference is everything is ground looped because both boards are grounded together so that both power supplies share ground. That's what I was overlooking in this, is I did not have ground shared between the two boards. So that's why it wasn't working. This had no ground reference to this, is what it was. And now it does. So I'm going to hook this up, and I'll bet you this works now. So let's get the monitor back up on here. All right. It is running, but it has no horizontal deflection. Horizontal circuit is not working, which is this bottom circuit. So I think I'll try something simple first. I'll just replace the DAC. I doubt that'll have any. You never know. And then it's going to be just going through the horizontal circuit, horizontal deflection. So I'll go ahead, I'll just try another DAC really quick and see if that does anything. And if not, then I'll have to pull this thing out and start looking at the horizontal output. But hey, this is promising. We've gotten somewhere. So it's very nice. Okay. Alright, I tried a new DAC. Here's the original. And I got a new one in there right there. And same thing. So we're going to have to take this thing apart and start looking at the components in there. Something is open. All right. All right, well, let me lock this camera in. This guy right here has given up the ghost. That is the 2N5320. That is a PNP no, that's an NPN transistor. And if I, can you see that? Not really. Let me back this up slightly and move. I'm going to have to move this or something. There we go. I'll go ahead and test this transistor in circuit. You know what? I'll do the opposite one. This is the one in the Y deflection circuit, and this is what it should look like. This is NPN. You get your good. Let me get on it. Come on. Okay. There's one drop, and then over to the other. There's your other. That's what it should look like. But this is what this one looks like over here in the horizontal deflection circuit. That's one side, and here's the other side. Yeah. That dude is toast. That guy right there. That's just one transistor that I found that looks bad. So I'm going to remove that guy, get it out of there. And I'll continue poking around in here, make sure I don't see anything else that's funky.